Okay, you guys. So before we go on to this next part, the three that I've got here, because I was going to start talking about emotional regulation, but I realized in order to do that, we have to have a discussion about self-awareness first. And self-awareness is not actually an easy topic either. And it's something that a lot of people think that they're good at and a lot of people are not good at. Okay. Self-awareness is there's internal self-awareness and external self-awareness. Okay. Internal self-awareness is being aware of what your needs are, what your behaviors are, your emotional responses, personality preferences or your values, and your strengths and weaknesses. Right? But there's also an external self-awareness in understanding not only how you're perceived by other people, correct or not, right? But understanding how you're perceived by people and how when you're communicating, being able to understand how that message is going to be received by other people that are not you. And the reason that self-awareness is tough for a lot of people is that both require a commitment to curiosity and a commitment to your values. It requires being genuinely curious about yourself, about others, and about your values. Okay, but like I said, and this is from Harvard Business Review, even though most people believe they are self-aware, only 10 to 15% of the people studied actually fit that criteria. It's a small amount. Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. There are 4 self-awareness archetypes, and that's based on the level of internal self-awareness and the level of external self-awareness. Okay, so both kinds. So people with low internal and external self-awareness, so meaning they don't know themselves very well and they really don't understand how other people perceive them. These fall into the seekers category. So they don't yet know who they are or what they stand for or how people see them. As a result, they might feel stuck or frustrated with their performance or relationships. And even though this is all written in kind of a business workplace context, this applies very much to personal relationships. And that's kind of how the context I'm going to use this in. But these people are essentially always going to fall victim to their circumstances, right? They don't understand that their own dynamics and their relational dynamics with others. And so they tend to keep repeating the same patterns, both at work and in personal relationships. And they really don't understand why. These people tend to not be able to take feedback well, right? Like feedback or criticism, because again, since they don't have a core understanding of who they are or that core identity, they're going to feel very vulnerable to any kind of feedback and see that as an attack. These people are often going to speak in terms of absolutes as well. Things always, you always, right? It always. Because of that reinforcing pattern, right? They're not learning and growing in their self-awareness or in their personal development. And so stuff does always happen to them. Okay, so let's talk about introspectors, right? These are people with a higher level of internal self-awareness, but a low level of external self-awareness. So they're clear on who they are, but they don't challenge their own views or beliefs or values. And they don't search for blind spots by getting feedback from others. This can harm their relationships and limit their success. These people tend to be extremely rigid, right? They can have high sense of core values. A lot of times I kind of think of social justice warriors in this, or people who attach themselves to very stringently to their values, but they don't really see like the complex interplay then between the values that they hold and then kind of like real life decisions that people are having to make around them that may interfere with their sense of values. These people are also going to tend to judge themselves based on their values and judge everybody else based on their actions. Do you see what I mean? So judging yourself based on intentions and judging everybody else based on their actions and ignoring their intentions. Okay, so now if you have low internal self-awareness, but you're very aware of how others are perceiving you or how others are perceiving, and by the way, this can be a lot of empaths, okay? They tend to be pleasers, so they can be so focused on appearing a certain way to others that they could be overlooking what matters to them. Over time, they tend to make choices that aren't in service to their own success and fulfillment. And again, a lot of people, that experience some childhood trauma can fall into this category as well. They can tend to be people pleasers and kind of doormats, right? Because, and again, that goes back to, kind of that childhood trauma of often that may have been a case of survival for them, was being extremely aware of their caregivers' emotional states or wants and needs, because that provided that knowledge and ability to respond to someone else's feelings and emotions, kept them safe. But the problem is, of course, that then if they're not spending that time also developing on what their core values are and what their needs are and their behaviors are, right, then you're not going to ever make choices that are in alignment with what you need. Okay, and then finally, so aware. So that's having a high level of internal self-awareness and a high level of external self-awareness. So they know who they are, what they want to accomplish, and seek out and value others' opinions. So in a state of high self-awareness, right, you're able to take a lot of feedback from other people, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're incorporating that feedback, but you're able to listen to it, to kind of process that and consider whether or not that's in alignment with your own internal, goals, needs, and values, without seeing that as a threat, without seeing that feedback as a threat. So these people tend to appreciate a diversity of opinions. And this is where leaders begin to fully realize the true benefits of self-awareness. Because again, if you have both a high level of internal self-awareness and external, you're going to be able to make a commitment to that value or to that mission or whatever the case may be, whatever the environment is, right? You're able to maintain that in your vision and your sight, but still adapt by understanding the needs of others within that same environment. And I'll just quickly go over, here are some tips on how to increase your self-awareness. Look at yourself objectively. Again, I think this is very difficult for people with low self-awareness to do, but trying to look at yourself objectively is stepping back from the situation and being able to view yourself as a third party, right? So, viewing both you and the other person as a third party from yourself, and try to understand, in any given situation, like how would I have perceived that if I shared the same, background, history, values, or experiences as the other person that I was speaking to. But just in general, keeping a journal or writing down, and in particular, these kinds of interactions that may have been difficult or frustrating to you, because this may be able to help you see a pattern as well, right? And as well as, again, kind of defining what your goals and your values and your priorities are, right? Are there patterns that come, again, within that? And honestly, I think if you'll do this too, you'll find a lot of people argue and fight over nothing, like stuff that really doesn't have any impact or importance on, anything. Okay, and so the last thing I'm going to mention here, Enneagram is, there are lots and lots of personality tests online, and if you haven't taken them, you should. Okay, but Enneagram is one of them, and it's like a personal inventory, and to help you kind of see what your values are, as well as how you may choose to interact with others. And anybody who is into personal growth and building yourself, this is a good idea. There's a website down here or whatever, but there's actually a variety of these free Enneagram tests online. So I highly recommend doing this, because again, I don't think without having at least a context of self-awareness, it's going to be difficult to do any of this healing series, to be honest. So I highly encourage taking one of these tests.